Current president, Mark Halls. I've known Mark for many years, ever since I was a teenager, when he started dating my sister.
Oh!
And he spent rather an uncomfortable night in my garden shed. I can't quite recall how he ended up there, but I remember being rather surprised to find him there in the morning. At that time, of course, in the 1970s, he had an afro haircut, which would not have looked out of place on one of the Jackson 5. While Mark has been a keen and skillful fisherman all his life, which undoubtedly qualifies him for his role at your esteemed club, he has lived since childhood in Suffolk. In fact, he's one of only a few presidents of an Norwich Angling Club to come from south of the Norfolk border, since the club was formed in 1858. You may wonder how a chap from Suffolk came to join a club representing the cream of Norfolk society and its angling folk. Now, there was some suggestion when Mark joined 10 years ago that the club was having to fall in line with EU equality and diversity regulations, and was therefore increasing its quota of ethnic minorities by recruiting new members from Suffolk. Of course, others suggested that he was invited to join by Chris Hine, a former president and current match secretary, because Chris was somewhat squeamish and not very confident in his angling skill, and needed the help of a proficient fisherman like Mark to handle the wriggly worms which you anglers like to keep about you. I was surprised to hear that, because many young ladies of Norfolk and Suffolk used to remark that Chris was always keen on playing around with his own wriggly worms. But Mark did later confide in me that he had slightly misunderstood what the Norwich Angling Club was all about. When Chris said there would be chances to get acquainted with the Norfolk Broads, Mark assumed it would involve outings to a certain type of gentleman's club on the Prince of Wales Road, rather than the reality of spending freezing afternoons on a riverbank at Wroxham. But I can actually reveal now that Mark was really invited because Chris, as a financial advisor, or perhaps a wealth manager as they like to call themselves these days, wanted to improve his professional standing amongst his peers in the club. So he asked Mark, an estate agent, to join us, to ensure that it made him look more respectable. Now Mark, as club president, has found himself in the same position of wanting to appear more professional before his fellow members. So he has invited me, a journalist, to speak to you tonight. Now, of course, as a journalist working largely in East Anglia for more than 30 years, I have on occasion reported on the activities of fishing club members and their friends. Some of the faces I recognise at these dinners include gentlemen from the legal fraternity who I'm used to seeing in court from my privileged position on the press bench, where I witnessed the cut and thrust of their arguments. Another old guest of the club, and a great friend of every local journalist, was of course the late Norfolk coroner Jimmy Hipwell, a lawyer of the old school, always ready to enliven inquests with a good quote, and never afraid to challenge the authorities, while at the same time treating the bereaved with dignity and respect. Perhaps the best story, though, that I've done with a link to the fishing club involved another guest who was playing cricket when he was struck on the hip by a ball during a match. Unfortunately, the blow ignited a box of matches which he foolishly had in the pocket of his trousers. Other players watched in horror as the hapless cricketer seemed to spontaneously combust, with smoke and flame pouring out of his pocket. Fortunately, the player was not seriously injured, but the incident did lead to the inevitable headline, "Goodness gracious, great balls of fire." As a journalist, of course, I've had my ear to the ground for the last year or so, and I was hoping to bring you tales of adultery, dodgy dealing, and other snippets of salacious, juicy gossip involving club associates and indeed members, without resorting to phone hacking, I might add. But to keep in line with new reporting guidelines, I've had my speech vetted by Lord Leveson, and he has ruled that none of these matters can be disclosed tonight. So instead, as a guest at fishing club dinners for many years, I'm left to reflect on the hospitality that the club has extended to myself and others. Many people view angling as a rather solitary pursuit, involving long hours sitting alone with one's thoughts on a riverbank in often dismal weather, pitting your wits against Mother Nature. But the fishing club has shown me, through friendly gatherings like this, that angling is also a sport which involves a great camaraderie, and is actually quite a sociable pursuit. As anyone from Suffolk will testify, folk from Ipswich can be nervous of straying too far north into Norwich City territory for fear of being called bin men or worse. But one only has to look to the reception that the fishing club affords to its Suffolk guests to see that there is nothing to worry about. It's the same, of course, for supporters of Norwich City, who are proud to have the saintly Delia Smith as the public face of the Canaries and the club's majority shareholder, even though she's a good old Suffolk girl who's lived most of her life in Stowmarket. And of course she revealed her true colours when she appeared on national TV wearing a giant blue and white rosette on the morning of Ipswich Town's FA Cup win in 1978. The local paper in Ipswich, of course, has reprinted the picture of Delia in blue and white on countless occasions, ever since, to remind its readers that our local cookery queen does not necessarily have green and yellow blood flowing through her veins. So if Delia and the Norwich Angling Club proving to the world that Suffolk and Norfolk can get along very nicely, I think we should all encourage a new spirit of entente cordiale between our two wonderful counties. We have a lot to offer each other. Suffolk has its glorious seaside towns of Alva and Southall, its beautiful countryside, racing at Newmarket, and newly revitalised waterfront in Ipswich. Everybody loves the wide open spaces of Norfolk, the gentle humour of its residents, its peaceful villages and historic towns, the wonderful city of Norwich, its fine food, and one of its greatest institutions, the Norwich Angling Club. And I thought I'd better finish with a little bit of word of advice from a friend of Mark's called Swiss Tony, some Cardiff, who rather gave some fishing advice which Mark said ought to be obeyed at all times. And he did remark that fishing was rather like making love to a beautiful woman. First of all, clean and inspect your tackle. Carefully pull back your rod cover and remove any dirt or gunge that may have built up. Then extend your rod to its full length and check that there are no kinks or any wear, particularly at the base where the grip is usually applied. Make sure you have a decent float, the appropriate bait, and there's plenty of shot in your bag. But being a non-angler, I don't know what any of that means. But finally, gentlemen, this remains me to say.
And we pause.
In appreciation of the fine county of Norfolk and the Norwich Angling Club, can I ask all the guests to be upstanding and drink to the robust health of the 155-year-old club, in the hope that its members will enjoy fantastic fishing and good fellowship for many years to come. The Norwich Angling Club.
Norwich Angling Club.
Well done, Ed.